When you think of Facebook, you primarily think of social media, but these days with their shift to really kind of tripling down on the metaverse, it's impossible to separate them from gaming, as metaverses really are, in essence, video games. They're MMOs that are trying to blend into the real life, if you will, by creating this second life where people are supposed to partake in and do a lot of their daily activities there. It's this strange idea that's, very sci-fi almost, but as cool as they look in movies, when you think about their application, it raises some questions as to whether this is really the future we want to head in. I mean, we have seen glimpses of what Meta is trying to do with the metaverse. Here is the trailer for Horizon Worlds. This is the glorified trailer that presents, it doesn't really look all that compelling here, but this is kind of the spruced up version of what it actually is currently. If you look at actual gameplay, this is closer to the reality. And you can see this looks, honestly, kind of disturbing, really, and not all that fun. If you want to play games that are fully fleshed out, might as well get those separate games where shooting looks a lot better, where it's fully developed into a proper video game instead of what feel like half-assed mini games. And I know these social spaces, the visual fidelity, none of it feels like it's really all there, like it's at a quality level that is required for people to really be compelled by it. Here's another bit of footage from another individual who kind of tried out Horizon Worlds, and this looks so dead and sterile and disturbing in a lot of ways. Here's another one where they're like navigating the streets of this pseudo-Japan, I guess, and I don't know how any of this seems compelling to anyone when there are so many other VR experiences out there. Play some Half-Life Alyx and immerse yourself there, and sure, that's not a social experience, but still, it's just, I really don't comprehend where Metaverse is headed when we've already had Metaverses. They're called MMORPGs, or just MMOs in general. This feels like an attempt for companies to exert more control over people by getting them to partake in this thing and having much of their real-life elements shift into this endeavor that is not really taking off. The numbers speak for themselves. You can read right here an article from back in April of 2022 that I previously covered. Meta burned $2.96 billion on Reality Labs last quarter. While Facebook, or Meta as a whole, is still very much profitable, the Meta division, the Metaverse division, is losing tons of money every quarter, every year. And who knows, maybe in the future they'll somehow find a way to normalize this, but as things currently stand, people just don't believe in the metaverse, which also make heavy use or, will heavily rely on NFTs, which are declining when it comes to interest surrounding them. There's also plenty of skepticism from investors. Mark Zuckerberg wants to spend big on the metaverse, but investors are skeptical. You've got CEOs of other companies who are just straight up like, what are we doing here? Calling the metaverse ambiguous, unimaginative, and kind of hypothetical. Here's another CEO who said that Facebook's pivot to metaverse hardware might be leading them astray, and even employees are kind of not really happy about this shift. Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse obsession is driving some current and former Facebook employees nuts. It's the only thing Mark wants to talk about. Matters aren't helped that security and regulations within the metaverse are practically non-existent, and people have been allowed to engage in horrible ways where, you can read these headlines for yourself. There's just managing online chats in video games is bad enough, and now they're trying to create a whole virtual society where everyone's supposed to behave amongst each other, especially in the veil of anonymity. It just feels like a disaster waiting to happen. The end result of this pivot has been that Meta's stock has tanked. From its peak of roughly $378 back in September 10th, 2021, it is now sitting at a mere $161. I wouldn't say mere, that's still, a high stock price, I guess, but from Meta's peak, it is a huge decline that is highlighting just the general nervousness surrounding Meta's strategy. And now we are getting this expose or investigative report from news outlet Fortune that highlights how current and former Meta staffers describe confusion, disarray, and declining confidence in Mark Zuckerberg as Sheryl Sandberg departs. And there are a number of key parts here that spotlight how this shift towards the metaverse has been a major source of that disarray. So here are the bits that I want to highlight. The departure of Sheryl Sandberg who announced her resignation from Meta Platform Wednesday after 14 years as chief operating officer, has left a major negative impression within and outside the company. Meta struggles to maintain revenue and user growth in the face of Apple's privacy changes and stiff competition from TikTok, combined with the whiplash-inducing pivot to the metaverse, have left many Meta employees feeling uneasy and disoriented, according to interviews with more than a dozen former employees who have left in the months since the company rebranded itself as Meta last October. And among those who Fortune spoke to were former executives who left the company because they weren't confident in the company's vision. There was a reordering of the leadership ranks, and that's left employees wondering who's in charge and where they stand. The just general leadership structure has been in disarray at the company. And here we have a quote from former executive who recently left the company. A lot of people are confused about exactly what they're supposed to be working on and why. They have to figure out, how do you sell ads for the metaverse? The demand for metaverse ads won't be there for 5 years yet, but they have to be ready for it. So there is this belief that the metaverse will eventually become normalized. I cannot say for sure one way or the other. All I'm saying right now is that in the current state of what their vision of the metaverse is, I don't see a future for the metaverse unless there is something drastic they introduce about it that makes me go, oh, okay, I would genuinely use this because this is actually useful. It actually makes me more productive in some way, or it actually contributes to society in a way that isn't just corporate gouging, which is a lot of what corporate endeavors tend to be. Is the pivot going to be successful financially for the company? I think a lot of people were concerned about that, says another source that they spoke to. Then they delve into how after Meta's stock cratered, as we saw in the Google chart, market was questioning whether Meta was becoming Yahoo 3.0. I mean, Yahoo was a giant back in the day. I remember in the good old days when my preferred search engine was Yahoo, but I mean, they're barely relevant now. And Meta seems to be kind of cratering towards that level of irrelevance, with what many to be believe to be a misguided vision on the part of Mark Zuckerberg to triple down on this metaverse idea that's really not gaining traction alongside NFTs and interest surrounding them cratering. And NFTs are a big part of what they're planning to make with the metaverse, as NFTs are supposed to essentially be, ledgers that define who owns what in the digital space, except we have seen heists and robberies and hacks that have led to thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, tens of millions to hundreds of millions of dollars worth of NFTs and cryptocurrency getting stolen. It's just not a safe environment to start with. So it's just not something that really has garnered public confidence. Employees are worried that Meta might be entering a terminal decline. The falling stock price, down more than 40% since a rebrand in mid-October 2021, has also been a topic of conversation. About 33% of surveyed employees say that they're less confident about Zuckerberg's leadership compared to last year, basically since that shift towards the rebranding of Meta and towards tripling down on Metaverse. People are less confident that Mark Zuckerberg actually knows what he's doing, and maybe it's more of like this misguided obsession, contrasting with 27% who said that they were more confident. Despite misgivings, though, employees are largely willing to give Zuckerberg the benefit of the doubt on his leadership in general, on the metaverse in particular. They have watched Zuck successfully pivot the company before. But in previous endeavors, it felt different. Purchasing things like Instagram and WhatsApp with the rollout of stories, image-heavy posts that only stay up for a day, and all these things. I mean, I don't know. They're not my brand of social media engagement, but it's not like I didn't see the appeal of them or that I felt like people wouldn't engage with that stuff. But the metaverse, I'm really trying to think of how this could actually make lives better, how this could have people get engaged. Having to put on these VR headsets to do, basic tasks that are better done in real life anyway, like going shopping. There've been, videos of what that looks like on the metaverse, where you're putting virtual items in carts and all these things, but you still have to wait for them to ship because those are just not real. They're not physically real. You're doing the virtual manifestation of putting items in carts, but you're not actually doing it. You're not actually driving to a store and immediately getting that product from the brick and mortar store. So it's just a lot of stuff that you could do much more quickly and much more efficiently by just tapping a few buttons on your smartphone. That's way more efficient. And, once the glow and the sparkles of, oh, wow, VR wears off, what you're left with is just a way of doing things that's more inconvenient than what we have now, if you ask me. Company is operating from a position of relative financial strength, though, which is what I mentioned before. Facebook or Meta is ultimately very profitable, so they can afford to lose billions of dollars on the metaverse aspect of things while other divisions make up for that loss. Yeah, nearly $40 billion in net income in 2021 and another $7.5 billion in profits in the first quarter of 2022. Meta as a whole is nowhere close to like crumbling or anything. They're still going to be in a healthy financial position ultimately, but the metaverse aspect is sort of dragging things down. It is kind of a heavy chain and ball that they have to kind of really make up for. As for Zuckerberg himself, here's what he said about the metaverse, basically saying that, well, people just don't get it, and the fact that there's so much doubt surrounding this is actually a good sign that maybe I'm headed in the right direction, because all innovation always has that element of doubt surrounding it. Here's what he said. Obviously, being in a state where something that you're trying to do is fundamentally misunderstood or that people don't believe in can be tough. But after going through a bunch of these cycles, I actually feel like I've trained myself to see it the opposite way, which is if I'm doing something that feels too well understood for too long, then I feel like I'm just being complacent. I want to push us into the zone, which is, okay, let's constantly be doing something that can be doubted, because if we're not, then what are we doing? Look, there's an aspect to that I can understand. For example, in the advent of smartphones, I recall that many people were skeptical about the erasure of physical keyboards and kind of normalizing digital keyboards or virtual keyboards. But, it was a sacrifice that initially I was skeptical about, but I also did get the appeal of this idea of like the screen itself being the input and it being able to adapt to whatever apps you are engaging in, and it being able to change to your needs based on what programs you're using, and the idea of multi-touch and being able to scroll through the internet with the touch of your screen and stuff like that. I saw the future of smartphones as something ultimately positive, even if there were sacrifices to be made in things that we were used to, like physical keyboards. I also remember the transition to USB-C. There was a time when smartphones were primarily using micro USB to charge and whatnot, and so when companies would ship their phones with exclusively USB-C, there was a lot of just frustration, but I understood that transition eventually had to happen, and lo and behold, eventually USB-C became normalized, and now people prefer that things have USB-C ports because that's the new normal, and USB-C and Thunderbolt and all these things are just better than what we had before. So yes, there was a bit of, sort of hate surrounding the transition, but I understood that the future was ultimately brighter for it, having USB-C be standardized. The metaverse, however, I don't just see it as like a rough transition to something that will ultimately make life better. I see it as a transition that adds nothing really new to the table or nothing that really benefits us. It feels more corporate beneficial. It feels like it's just them trying to, again, exert more control over people's lives and, have them engage in an environment where they can gather more information, more data about you, and just in that way kind of control your behavior. I mean, social media on its own is already manipulating entire countries when you think about it. And now with the metaverse, it just feels like they're trying to just take that to the next level. Anyway, moving on, Fortune continues to describe some of the disarray and some of the doubts that are spreading within Meta. Departure of a host of senior-level Meta executives are contributing to a growing sense of unease among colleagues. The departures are also including people on the technology side whose expertise could have been critical to building the metaverse. So a lot of folks who were like key to kind of building and bring to life the vision of the metaverse are departing from the company. That doesn't seem to me like a good sign that there is, confidence, even from the people who specialize in this technology and are key to the creation and the bring to life of this vision that so many corporations have now. Though on the other side of the fence, there is a substantial number of Meta employees who have faith, who believe that the yet-to-be-developed metaverse will one day become a lucrative business. If they can somehow figure it out and find a way to present a concept of the metaverse that makes me go, oh, okay, I can kind of see where this is going, and I can kind of see why I might actually use this and partake in it. It's not just a corporate gimmick. Then all right, look, I'm open-minded to that possibility. so far, I'm just really, really not seeing it. At the same time, though, if you look at the percentage of employees who actually believe that Metaverse will be successful, about 58% of those surveyed say that they're confident that Meta will be successful in the Metaverse. That still shows that there's a huge division within the company. That's still a substantial number of employees on the other side of the fence who are thinking this whole Metaverse endeavor is just really not going to go anywhere. It's not going to take us to a path of success, and they don't believe that the metaverse can really become normalized on a level that corporations want. But among these 58%, they say that they understand Meta's strategy for the metaverse and that they understand how Meta will drive revenue from the metaverse. Of course, their focus is on revenue, but I wish someone would enlighten me on why something like Horizon Worlds, again, will make my life better. How does this benefit us, the customers, the consumers, if you will? Optics look even worse when you look at an article like this, which was published fairly recently, June 29th, 2022, whose headline reads, NFTs have fallen off the cliff as sales sink to lowest levels in a year. So that is just doing worse and worse. And NFTs will have to play a substantial role in metaverses to, enact this whole idea of digital ownership, which is kind of a ridiculous idea when you consider the security pitfalls of NFTs and how we're constantly reading articles about how NFTs have been stolen, how cryptocurrency have been stolen. They're just such an unsecure form of digital ownership that it's just the idea of ownership in this landscape currently is frankly ridiculous. The article reads as follows. The market for non-fungible tokens has been spiraling downward after sales sank sharply and the prices of popular NFTs plummeted over the last few weeks. First month with under $1 billion in sales since June of 2021 is what's being reported. On the world's biggest NFT marketplace, OpenSea, sales volume has fallen 75% since May and looks set to scrape the lowest level since July of 2021, June data shows. The prices of top-selling NFTs have also slipped. Other deed NFTs have seen their price floors fall by about 30% in the last 30 days, while the price floor on Bored Ape Yacht Club's blue chip NFT collection has also fallen nearly 33% in the same time. JPG NFT index is down by more than 70% since its inception in April. There's just this cratering pattern going on that highlights the lack of interest, that there was this initial hype that was just that, hype. But once the hype died down, once people realized what NFTs were and saw it for what it is, this minefield of just crime, theft, schemes, and scams, people realized, yeah, this is just far from worth it and are no longer interested in engaging with it in any way, shape, or form. Investors have been shunning many crypto-related projects, also been dumping Ether. Investors' faith in crypto and NFTs is plummeting as well. And here's what head of research at DApp Radar, Pedro Herrera, said, without question, the NFT market has fallen off the cliff this June. While the market is way more mature, it is fair to say that in recent weeks, investors were looking for safer places to put their money amid the Terra collapse and the rumors surrounding potential liquidations. The speculative nature of NFTs and crypto is what makes them dangerous. It kind of goes up and down and with no rhyme and reason, and you don't really own anything when you invest in NFTs and crypto. It's all just virtual things that claim you own this and that, but it's genuinely dangerous on top of the fact that there are security risks all over the place with how this environment is, again, rife with crimes, theft, money laundering, schemes and scams, pyramid schemes, Ponzi schemes. That's what all of this ultimately is. But Mark Zuckerberg continues to be stubborn and believe that the metaverse is the way of the future. In a recent post, he talked about this whole concept of being able to take your digital goods and transfer them to various platforms and environments. There's a post he published on Facebook introducing Meta Pay and a digital wallet for the metaverse. Today we're taking the first step by changing Facebook Pay to become Meta Pay. It'll stay the same easy way to shop, send money, and donate to causes you care about on Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Messenger, and anywhere else you could use Facebook Pay. But beyond the current features, we're working on something new, a wallet for the metaverse that lets you securely manage your identity, what you own, and how you pay. Now, the term NFT is never brought up in this post, but that's literally pretty much the definition of what he's describing here. In the future, there will be all sorts of digital items you might want to create or buy: digital clothing, art, videos, music experiences, virtual events, and more. Proof of ownership will be important, especially if you want to take some of these items with you across different services. But for that to happen, companies, across the globe would have to agree to kind of all just work together and open up their platforms to each other. And then the developers would have to go in there and create assets that would allow these platforms to kind of interact with each other and for items to actually be transferable and be represented in each of those platforms. You can't just take something from one technology, one platform, one engine, and just like have it just transfer immediately to something, to a completely different kind of platform, environment, engine, tool set, you name it. They're just not compatible. It's just not how this kind of technology works. Everyone would have to be using the same platform for that to be applicable. And even then, you know, two games that use Unreal Engine aren't necessarily compatible just because both of them use Unreal Engine. You know what I mean? You still have to make the assets that allow both games to kind of be able to transfer items from one game or one platform to another. There's a lot of work that is involved in kind of allowing for that level of compatibility that is just woefully misunderstood from a company that has no idea how to make games. And again, that's what metaverses are. They are, in their essence, video games that are trying to be virtual second lives. Mark Zuckerberg continues, ideally, you should be able to sign into any metaverse experience and everything you've bought should be right there. Good luck with that future. There's a long way to get there, but this kind of interoperability will deliver much better experiences for people and larger opportunities for creators. That is, the more places you can easily use your digital goods, the more you'll value them, which creates a bigger market for creators. The more easily you can transact, the bigger the opportunity for creators should get as well. We're looking forward to building this out. I just don't understand this idea of, hey, buy virtual property, buy a virtual car. I don't know. It's just like they're useless. Outside of this video game environment, they're useless. And at least in a proper MMO video game, you know that you're going in there to experience this alternate fictional reality where you're experiencing this unique setting and story and kind of absorbing the game world and all these things. That's what that experience is about. But again, Metaverse is trying to be a second life, a second virtual life, and trying to kind of make you partake in that as a substantial part of your real life, you know, activities. But, you know, if you buy a piece of clothing in the Metaverse, it doesn't do anything for you in real life. If you buy Metaverse property, it doesn't do anything for you in real life. That's just this investment in a digital good. That's just a bunch of zeros and ones that NFTs say you allegedly own before, you know, potentially gets stolen by some hacker or whatever. So again, what's the end goal here? Where's the improvement for us as customers other than engaging in this fake environment where money is poured and that treats everything like it's just an investment opportunity? This all sounds like nothing more than a failed experiment waiting to happen. It just sounds like corporate hubris from billionaires who are just bored. And until things like NFTs and Metaverse present something that justifies their existence, I've emphasized time and again before that when it comes to NFTs, a lot of the features that game companies present as, man, this is going to open brand new doors. You can already do stuff that companies claim is new with NFTs. You can do that stuff without NFTs. And when it comes to Metaverse, again, it just all feels ultimately useless, superficial in the grand scheme of things. So I'm going to continue to criticize this stuff and call this stuff out. And given that Metaverses are in the realm of gaming, you know, and given that game companies are trying to get into NFTs and trying to normalize them across video games, and Metaverses are also things that companies like Square Enix have brought up, where it just feels like them chasing hype in the hopes of, you know, finding new revenue avenues to pursue that infinite growth that is in the long term unattainable. I'm going to continue to not give these companies the benefit of the doubt. But that's just one man's take on everything. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on where you think the future is headed. Do you think NFTs and Metaverse can one day present a concept that will make us buy into them and allow these concepts to become normalized like Mark Zuckerberg wants them to? Or are you completely repelled by these ideas, as I am, based on the current information that we have? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.